Welcome to Computing at Home with Digital Schoolhouse. My name is Estelle, otherwise known as ComSci Geek. I'm a computing teacher and also develop resources for the programme. We specialise in delivering computing workshops that are accessible, educational and fun. You are watching part 2 of our part-baked games workshop. This workshop is standalone, meaning that you don't need to have taken part in part 1 to complete part 2. If you'd like to complete part 1, it's now available on our YouTube channel. Just search for Digital Schoolhouse. To all learners watching, remember you can pause the video at any time to take notes, collect your thoughts, or take part in the workshop alongside me. The Digital Schoolhouse team are ready and waiting in the chat should you have any questions throughout. I'll be also taking 5 minutes to answer your questions at the end of the workshop. Parents and guardians, you might want to watch the next bit as it explains how to access our resources, but after that feel free to join in or sit nearby to supervise if you want to. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do before we actually really properly start the workshop is just go through how to find the resources. So you need to head over to the Digital Schoolhouse website, which is digitalschoolhouse.org.uk. Find where it says resources, and on the little drop-down menu, click on live workshops. Scroll down the page and find the section for part-baked games. Click on the hyperlink that says part-baked games. This will take you to the main page for this workshop. So if you're interested in running this as some standalone lessons at your school, this is where you would need to go if you wanted to get the resources for doing that. But for today, you'll need to go to where it says access all files here, click on the link. Go to the folder that says part-baked games files. Load that up, and inside you'll find all of the part-baked games that are available for this particular workshop. The game that we're going to be making today is called Run the Gauntlet, so this is the one that you're going to need to download. So to download it, right click, it will bring up a menu and go to where it says download, click on that, and it will do a scan and it will download it directly to probably your downloads folder, unless it actually asks you where you want to save it. So you'll need to let that download. Then what you can do is if you click on this little arrow here, the little up arrow, that will take you to another little menu. Click on show in folder and that will show where you've saved that download. So you can see I've saved it in my downloads folder. Obviously you can also navigate directly to it from this PC and then downloads, and you'll find it in there as well. So that's all you're going to need for this workshop. We are going to go and make a start now. Okay, so welcome to Part-Baked Games Part 2. In this workshop, you are going to learn about how to build common game mechanics in Construct 3. You're going to be using sequence, selection and repetition to create your game mechanics, and you're going to be working with variables and various forms of input and output in your game. So what are part-baked games? This might be a new concept to you. Part-baked games are games that are partially finished, that allow the developer to focus on one particular area of game development. So in this case, in this workshop, you'll be using part-baked games that allow the developer to focus on game mechanics. And of course, the developer in this case is you. So the game we're going to be creating is called Run the Gauntlet, as I explained earlier. And the first thing we're going to do is preview the part-baked game. So I'm going to go through how to open the file and also how to save it so that you're able to do that, and then how to preview. So we're going to head over to Construct 3 and I'll also explain how to open the software now. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is, using Google Chrome, you're going to need to search for Construct 3. So I'm going to type that in now. So Construct 3, hit enter to search for that, and it will be the first item that comes up in your search results, Game Making Software Construct 3. Click on that. It will then load this page. You'll need to click on where it says Try It Now. Then you'll need to scroll down the page a little bit and find where it says Launch Now. and that will open up the browser version of Construct 3. You can download it, but for what we're doing today, you don't need to. So once you're in there, you don't need to pay for anything either. The free version is absolutely fine for what we're doing. You are going to click on where it says New Project. So this is how you'd set up a new project, and you would then give it a name. But I've just realised we don't need to set up a new project. We're actually opening a file. So apologies, my mind went a bit on to something different there. So don't go on to new project, but if you wanted to in the future, that's where you'd go to create a game from scratch. Click on File. And this is where you need to browse to where the file is saved. So as I said, you'll find it in your downloads folder. So if it doesn't automatically open on this browser window, if you find the section that says this PC and then find downloads, that's most likely where it will have gone. Don't forget, you can always pause if you need to need to remind yourself where the file's been saved, showing by going to open in folder like I showed you earlier. So I'll just do that again. Click on File, go to your Downloads folder or wherever you've saved it, double click on the file, and then it will open. There you go. So you'll see that there's already some bits and pieces already built in. There's a couple of events that are built in. You can tell they're events because they are on the event sheets. You can see here. You can't really break anything, so don't worry too much because you can always reload that file that you downloaded to start with. So don't worry, you're not going to damage anything by having a look at things. Most of what we're going to be doing is in the section that's called Layout 1. So I'm going to click on Layout, and that will open this area that shows all the different elements of the game that I've already put in. So all the different things that we put into a game, we can describe as objects or assets. So in this case, we've got quite a few different assets and objects that are already built into our game. This area here that has like a dotted line around the outside is called the layout view. That dotted line shows you what you can actually see when you play the game. So anything that's outside of this dotted line wouldn't be visible. So that's something just to bear in mind as you're starting to build your game. One thing that's really important to do regularly as you're going along is remember to save your game. So to save from Construct 3 in the free version, all you need to do is go to Menu, Project, and then go to where it says Save As. You can set up cloud save if you want to, but in this case the quickest way of getting it saved is to do download a copy, and that will save it straight into your downloads folder in the same way as we did when we downloaded the file to start with. So that's what I'd recommend doing, and do it regularly as you're going along, so that way you'll have a few versions of the game as you're creating it, and also you've got something to go back to if you make a mistake, or if you accidentally reload the page or something like that, you've got something to go back to. So to save, just go to Menu, Project, Save As, download a copy. Okay, so the first thing that I said that we were going to do was to preview the game and see what it does at the moment. So to preview, all you need to do is press on this little play button here. So if you press that play button, it will open a window for you to preview the game in. There we go. Now, if for some reason it doesn't actually open, one thing that sometimes happens is you have to allow pop-ups, and if that's the case, there'll be an icon up here that you'll need to click on to allow pop-ups. So if that's the case and you can't see the preview of the game, just make sure you've got pop-ups allowed. It'll be up here and you'll need to do it there. Okay, so let's head back over to a presentation and have a look at what we're going to be doing next. Okay, so what I want you to do is preview the game. Have a look at what you noticed so far, what is or isn't working, and have a little think about what game mechanics you think the game should include. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that. Have a little think about it. What mechanics do you think the game should include? Okay, so the game mechanics that we are going to be including are: can only move forwards, bounce off walls, and avoid enemies. They're the three game mechanics that we're going to be learning how to add. Now, if you need to close the preview window, which you probably will do now, I'm just going to show you how to do that before we move on. So if you've got your preview up and you want to learn how to close it, all you do just to close your preview is just click on this little cross here. You won't lose anything. It doesn't affect the actual Construct 3 design window at all. Just close it and that will close the preview. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. Okay, so moving back over to our PowerPoint. let's have a look at the first game mechanic that we are going to be using. So we're going to look at how we can add only move forwards. So in our game, the monster will only be able to move forwards. And can you already work out how to add this mechanic? So maybe if you've already used Construct 3 before, maybe you already know how to do this and you want to just run on ahead and see if you can do this yourself. Maybe pause it and then see if your answer matches mine. If you've not done it before, don't panic. We're going to go through how to do that now. Okay, so to add this first game mechanic, what you're going to do is in the project bar, which you can just see on the right hand side here, if, by the way, if at any point you accidentally close any of these windows, it's really easy to do, so don't worry if you do it. All you need to do is just go to Menu, go to View and Bars, and then you can turn on any of the ones that might have turned off. So the ones that we will generally be using are the Properties bar and the Project bar. So those two are the ones that you want to be able to see. So if they do turn off, you can just turn them off on back again in the View section of the menu. Okay, so we're going to scroll down and you're going to find the monster in our object list. So in the project bar, find the monster, right click on him, and you're going to go to where it says edit behaviours. Okay, so at the moment the monster doesn't have any behaviours at all because we need to add them. So we're going to click on where it says add new behaviour. And the behaviour that you're going to add is the one that's called platform. Now you can scroll down and find it. That's absolutely fine. Scroll down until you find platform. Or if you're feeling a little bit lazy, or probably more efficient maybe, you might want to type in platform and it will filter for you. So that's a quicker way of searching for things in any of the behaviours or events when we start to look at those later on. So add platform. And then once you've done that, you are going to do another little preview of your game. So once you've done that, I've already taught you how to do a preview. So hop back over onto your preview and have a look and see what happens now. Does your game work? What does work? What doesn't work? So I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. Have a go yourself. What works? What doesn't work? Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to run it and experimented. I'm going to show you what mine does to just show to you that you weren't doing anything wrong. So if I press play, you'll notice that my monster just falls straight down through the floor here. So that's what we need to sort out next. Okay, so what we're going to do for that is we're going to add another kind of behaviour. Now, again, I'm going to give the presentation for this to see if you can do it yourself before I show you how to do it. So let's pop back over and have a look at what we are going to be creating. So you are going to be creating this behaviour here. So you are going to be stopping the monster from falling through the wall, because the object that that I'm using to keep the monster within the area is called the wall. So stopping from falling through the wall by having a solid behaviour. I want you to see if you can work out how to add the solid behaviour to the wall object. I will show you how to do this, so don't worry if you don't know. I just want to give you a little chance to see if you can do it yourself. And once you've done it and had an experiment with it, preview and check to see if it works, same as before. Okay, so I'll give you a tiny bit of time to have a go at doing that, and then I'll show you how to do it just in case you need a little bit of a pointer. Okay, so let's move and have a look at how we would add that behaviour. So hopefully you have found the wall object in the project bar, you've gone to right click on it and you've gone to edit behaviours like we did before, and you've gone to add new behaviour, and this time you've added solid. Okay, so I'll just do that again in case anyone didn't quite catch that. So right click on the wall object in the project bar, go to edit behaviours, click on add new behaviour, click on solid and click on add. Okay, and as before, you can now preview and check to see if it's working by clicking on the play button. So click on the play, the preview button, and you should find that your monster now stays where he is, and not only that, you should also be able to move him. So try that out. You should be able to use the arrows to move him, and also the up arrow makes him jump. So there we go. So try that out, test it to see if it works. If it doesn't quite work, just go back through the steps that I've done so far and just make sure you've added them correctly. So remember, we've added a behaviour to the monster that made him have the platform behaviour, and then we added the solid behaviour to the wall that meant he could then actually stand on that object. Okay, let's move on. So what we're going to do next. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to think about how we can make our monster only move forwards. So what we're going to need to do this is actually change some of the platform behaviours properties. So we've not done this before. So it's something a little bit new that we haven't covered before. So we're going to have a look at how to do this together. Okay, so I'm going to transition back over into Construct 3 and I'm going to explain how to change some of these settings. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it back on so you can see what I'm doing. That'd be helpful. There you go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find the properties for my monster. So to make sure that I've got the properties for my monster, I need to click on him so that he's selected. Okay, how do I know that he's selected? Hopefully you have just said to the screen that you can tell it's selected because it's got like a little box over it, and you can tell it's also selected because it's got these little like grab icons in the corner that allow you to resize and things like that. So we can now see the properties that are specifically for our monster. If I scroll down the page, you'll notice that there's a section called behaviours. If you can't see it, you might need to click on this little arrow to open it out. Once you've got in there, you'll need to click on the little tick box that says default controls, because we don't want them to be enabled. We want them to be disabled so that we can actually create our own controls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck that box. So I'm going to click on it so it's not ticked anymore. There you are, you can see it's not ticked anymore. And that means the default controls don't work anymore. So if I press play, the preview button, and test it, I should find now that my monster doesn't actually move with my arrow presses anymore, because we need to now program that bit to happen. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the event sheet. So up the top here, we are in layout 1 at the moment. We're going to go into the section called event sheet 1. Click on that and you'll see there are already 2 events in there. Okay, let's have a little closer look at those events before we move any further. Let's have a closer look at what is already in there. So have a closer look. We've got a system on start of layout, health bar set animation frame to 3. And then we've got the monster on collision with the goal. You win, set visibility to visible. So there's 2 events already created for the game. What do you think they might do? Have a little think about it. I'm not actually going to tell you what they do because I think that you'll be able to find out the answer yourself as we go along, and then we'll come back and maybe answer that at the end to see if you are able to identify what those 2 starting events actually did. So let's jump back over into our actual game and start to think about how we can add that specialised movement so that it doesn't work with the default settings anymore. So as I said, we're going to be setting these in the event sheet, so make sure you've got that selected if you haven't already. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to where it says add event. So just underneath the 2 events that we've already got, click on where it says add event. And the one that you're going to use is based on keyboard movement. So you might have noticed that in the project bar, that keyboard has already been added as an object. That means that you're able to control your game using the keyboard. So that's why it's there. So click on keyboard, then click on next. And the next thing we want to look for is the one that says key is down. So you'll find there's lots of different options. The one you want is the one that says key is down. Then go to next. And then you can choose what you're going to allow for the key is down movement. So first thing you're going to do is click on where it says click to choose, and the one we're going to go for is the right arrow. So if you press the right arrow, it will automatically detect that that's what you've pressed. You can also select it from the drop down, but you don't really need to. So right arrow, then click on OK, and then click on done. and you'll see that gets added as an event. Okay, I'm just going to do that again for anyone that needs that. So I go to where it says add event, I click on keyboard, I click on next, I go to the one that says key is down, make sure it's key is down, go to next, I click on where it says click to choose, and I press the key that I want to use, which is going to be the right arrow, because that's the only thing that we're going to actually allow movement for our monster. So the right arrow, and then I click on OK, and then I click done. And you can tell it's been added because it appears inside the event sheet. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add the action that's going to happen as a result of our condition. So what we've got going on here is an example of a selection statement, which we learned in Just Dance with the Algorithm. If you remember, that was the one that's to do with if the music is playing, then start dancing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to check out our Just Dance with the Algorithm workshop. So in this case, we have got a condition that says if the right arrow key is down, something is going to happen. So what we're going to do is click on where it says add action. This time we're going to select the monster and then click on next, or you can double click as well. I'm going to click on next. Then you want to go to where you have got the platform actions. So scroll down and find the platform actions. There we go. And the one that we're going to be using is the one that says simulate control, because we want to basically trick the computer into behaving as though the right key is being pressed in the normal settings. So we're going to simulate control, go to next, and then it will ask me what I want to happen as a result of that simulation of control. And we need to change it from left to right. Otherwise, when you press the right arrow key, he'll go the wrong direction. Then click on done. Okay, so now it's your opportunity to test it and just check that it is working. Remember, press the preview button and just check to see if that works. So you should now find that your other keys don't do anything, but your right arrow makes him move. Okay, so make sure you've got that working. And as I said earlier, if you do need to just pause it there because you need to check over that, that's absolutely fine. Go back a few steps and read and check what I told you to do if you're not sure. That's absolutely fine. So make sure you've previewed your game, what's working now, what's still not working, what do we need to add next. Okay, just give you a little bit of time. Okay, hopefully you found that previewed correctly and you can see that it now only moves forward. So let's have a look at the next rule that we're going to be using. So the next rule that we're going to be adding, the next game mechanic, is bounce off walls. This mechanic is going to be used to make the monkey balls bounce off the walls, and then well, we'll talk about exactly what they're going to do a bit later. Can you work out how to already add this mechanic? As I said before, if you want to pause it here, have a go at adding the mechanic yourself and then join back in with me afterwards to see if you were correct. That's absolutely fine. Just be aware, if you do pause it, you will need to then skip it backwards to catch up with where you were previously. And also all our videos go on YouTube afterwards, so you are also welcome to watch and re-watch them there again afterwards. Okay, so let's have a look at how we're going to add this mechanic bounce off walls. Okay. So to add the game mechanic bounce off walls, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to head back into my layout tab. So I'm going to click on layout, and I'm just going to show you what we're going to be applying this behaviour bounce off walls to. We're going to be applying it to these little monkeys here. And you see them, yeah, on the top and the bottom of the level. We want them to bounce off the walls, so they actually have a little bit of a behaviour going on, a bit of an animation. So if we added it just to one of them, that means that only one of them would bounce, and that's not what we want. We want all of them to bounce at once, so we can add it to the object itself. And as you might notice, when I clicked on the object in the project bar, it actually selected all of them. That's because when I add a behaviour to the object, it's going to add it to all of the individual objects that are on my stage at once. So you can talk about them being the child and this being the parent if you wanted to. So to add the behaviour, same as before, right click, go to edit behaviours, click on add new behaviour, and this time you're going to add the behaviour that is called bullet. So find the bullet behaviour, which is just there in the movement section. Remember, you can search for it if you find it easier and it will filter for you. And I'm going to select it and click on add. and that has now added the bullet behaviour to my monkeys. Okay, so you can do a quick test now to see what happens. So I'm going to press play, see what happens. It's just reloading because I didn't open. Oh no, they've just literally fallen straight down. So something's not quite right. So we need to go and have a look at the settings for this one. So same as before, make sure that you have your monkey ball selected in the project bar, and you're going to find the behaviours section in the properties bar. So this time you want to make sure that bounce off solids is ticked. So that little tick box in there needs to be selected, and now if you press the preview button again, you should now find that your monkeys bounce off the walls and bounce back up again. There we go. And they even spin a little bit, which is a really nice little added bonus with the animation that I've already added for you. Okay, so there we have our bounce off walls mechanic added to our game. Okay, so once again, give you a little bit of time, make sure you've got that correctly working, and if you need to go back and change anything, you can do. So very quick recap in case you need it. So what we just did on that section is we went to add the behaviour, the bullet behaviour. We added it to the monkey ball object, and you can, if you make sure you have to make sure that you've added it to the object in the properties bar, and not to the project bar, and not to individual ones on the layout, because otherwise you'll find it only applies to one of them. And once you added that, we also then went in and we changed some of the settings to make them bounce off solids. Okay, so make sure you previewed that and have a little think about what's working now, what's still not working, and what do we need to add next. Okay, brilliant. The next mechanic, in fact the last mechanic we are going to add is avoid enemies. So finally we're going to make it so that we need to avoid the monkey ball enemies. Again, if you know how to use Construct 3, you might want to see if you can add this mechanic yourself. If you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. You can follow along with me now, or if you want to, pause and come back and see if you were correct. Okay, so we're going to start to add events again. So you've already learnt how to add an event. So from now on, I might just show you the events like this, and then I'll go through the steps of adding them as well. So the first event that you're going to be doing is adding this event, which is when the monster collides with a monkey ball, the monster is destroyed. So I'm going to go through how to do this with you, but if you're happy to do it yourself and you're quite confident with adding the behaviour, feel free to have a go at doing it yourself if you want to. That's absolutely fine. As I said earlier, you can always pause it and then join me again, but just be aware you need to skip it back if you do decide to do that. So let's have a look at how we would add that behaviour to the monster. Okay, so we're going to jump back over onto the desktop and add in that behaviour now. So let's jump across. There we go. So we are going to add a new event. So once again, we're going to go to the event sheet, same as before. You can see the events that we've added so far are in there. You're going to click on add event. This time we're going to select the monster because we want to add an event that is a condition based on our monster. You click on next. Now the one that you need for this is on collision with. Okay, you're not going to see it specifically saying on collision with monkey ball because it's generic. It's going to be generic according to, it could be anything that you've got in your game. So on collision with another object is the one that you want. If you're finding it hard to find it, if you just type in collision or start typing collision, you'll find that it filters out and you can find it more easily. So find on collision with another object, click on next. And the object that we want to test for a collision with is one of our monkey balls. So what's really nice, as I spoke about earlier, is this is like the parent version of this. So when we click on this, it means it's going to select and apply to all of the objects that are monkey balls inside our layout. So click on OK and then click on done. And you'll find that the condition has been added for you. So the monster on collision with the monkey ball. And then we're going to add the action. So as a result of the monster colliding with the monkey, we're going to add the action, which is that the monster is actually going to be destroyed. Okay, at least for the time being. So we're going to click on the monster, click on next. You're going to scroll down and find destroy. So you might have to scroll down quite a lot to find it. And if, like me, you just scroll past it and you can't find it, you can always do that search and filter. There we go, there's destroy. And click on next, and you'll see that the monkey, so the monster on collision with the monkey ball is now going to be destroyed. And again, let's get you to preview that. I'm not going to preview it first. This time you can preview it before I do. So pop on a preview, check to see what happens and see if you think that is what should be happening. Okay, so preview it. What works, what doesn't work? Does it work as you expect it to? Okay, so let's see if yours is the same as mine. I'm going to quickly set up a preview of mine and we'll see if mine matches yours. Okay, so I'm going to press the preview and there is my monkey ball, and they are jumping around and you can see my monsters there. And what should happen is if I go and run into one of them, there you go, he's destroyed, he's disappeared. Okay, now that looks pretty good, but I don't think that's quite finished yet. So hopefully you might have some ideas of what we could do to make it look more obvious that that's the end of the game, because he hasn't managed to get through the gauntlet of these bouncing monkeys. And the thing that we probably could do with adding is some sort of message to the player. So hopefully you're screaming at the screen that if you go back to the layout, there seems to be some text here that says game over, and it'd be really good if that was appearing on our screen now. And you'd be quite right, because that is exactly what we're going to do next. So let's jump back over into our presentation and have a look at what that's going to look like. Okay. So we are going to be adding the game over text to our monkey ball so that it makes it look like it is actually game over, and it means that the player has some feedback of when they have lost the game. So to do this, we're going to be adding additional actions to an event, and you do that just by clicking on add action, and it's just inside the event that you want to add it to. So to do that, all we're going to need to do is add in a action that means that the game over text will appear. Okay, so to do that, we go back into the event sheet, same as we did before. Find the event that we want to add this action to, and as we said, we want to add it to the monster on collision with the monkey ball. We're going to click on add action, and we're going to go to the game over text. So click on game over, click on next, and what we want to do is make it visible. So as I said before, you can, if you want to, use the search to filter, or you can look through and find it. Sometimes it's quite nice to do that because it gives you an idea of the other things that are available to you. If you can't find it easily, it's absolutely fine just to type in visible or VIS into search. So set visible is what I'm going for here. Then I click on next, and I want to set it to visible. There's obviously a little option here, you can change between them, but we want visible. Then click on done, and then you can test it again. So I'll give you a little bit of time, test it out, see if your game works as you expect it to. So preview your game, what works, what doesn't work. Is there anything else that we need to still be adding? Okay, so let's have a look at what mine does and see if that compares favourably with what you've ended up with as well. So I'm going to press my little preview button, and I'm going to make my monster run into one of the monkeys, and you can see the game over text appears. Perfect. Okay, so you could leave the game here if you wanted to, but we're actually going to do a little bit more. You might have noticed that there's a health bar up here, and that's actually what we're going to start to look at next. So that is what we're going to be delving into next. And if you want to, again, pause or just leave the game there, that's absolutely fine. But let's now look at how we can add the health bar. So for those of you that aren't familiar with using a health bar in a game, a health bar just means that it will go down incrementally as the character is hit by the monkey ball. So the red health bar full means that he's got full health, but as he is hit by the monkeys, that health bar, that red bar, is going to go down until there isn't any health left, and at that point it would be game over. But before we do that, before we start to think about how we're going to actually add this health bar or get it working, because it's already physically added for you, let's have a look at what I've already added. So if I jump back into the game itself, and if you've had a little nosy through everything, which some of you might have done, you might have even found this already. If you haven't had a nosy through, that's absolutely fine, don't worry. I'm going to just quickly show you. So if I go back into the layout, so I can double click here on the health bar itself, or I can double click up here with the health bar in the project. It doesn't really matter which one I do. And that will open up the the animations editor for us to make changes. So you might notice that the health bar in here has the full health bar, a 2/3 full, a 1/3 full, and then an empty, roughly. So this is what we're going to be using to control what our health bar looks like. And these are called frames. Okay, so interestingly, you might have noticed that the frames start at 0, and that's actually a really good computer science concept. Because in computer science, when we do things like lists and arrays, and we think about numbering things, generally speaking, we will start at position 0. So that's why the very first of the frames is actually position 0 in the health bar. So let's have a little look at what events we might already have that are controlling what our health bar looks like. So if we jump back over into the event sheet, you might notice that we've already got an event that sets the health bar animation to frame 3. So when the game starts, the monster starts with full health. So this is the little bit of code that we already had. So I remember I asked you earlier if you might be able to predict what you thought that event might do. So that's what it's doing. It's making the health bar set to frame 3 so the health bar is full every time you start the game. So let's have a little look at that. So just to remind you, so I'm going to pop back over and I'm going to do a preview of my game and show you what I mean in case you're not quite sure. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into there. If you've still got the animations editor open, just close it. And if I preview, you'll see that the health bar when the game starts is full. Okay, so although on my actual layout it's empty, that's because frame 0 is the empty health bar, but the full health bar is frame 3, and we're controlling that by using an event that says when the game starts, so on start of layout, when the game starts, the health bar set the animation to frame 3. Okay, so that is exactly what is going on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to have a look at some of the other things that we've already got included in the game. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to have a little look at some variables. So you might have come across variables before, and variables are used for storing data that can change while the program is running. So in this case, we call them instance variables because they are actually added to a particular object, to an instance of the object to be more precise. So a variable has already been added to the monster object, and you can view, add and edit variables by right clicking on the object and then clicking on edit instance variables in the menu. So let's have a look at what the instance variable look like for the monster at the moment. Okay, so the monster, as I said, right click on him in the project bar, go to edit instance variables, and you should find he already has a health variable that's called health. It's a number data type. There are different types that you can add. You can have things called strings, which are used to store letters and numbers and combinations of letters and numbers. And in this case, it's a number, and it has the initial value of 3. That means it's going to start, when we start the game, the value of that variable, the amount that it's going to store is the number 3. Okay, so that's what that is doing. So we can also edit it if it's not quite right. If you double click on it, that will open up the edit instance variable. So if you did need to make any changes, that's where you would do it. But in this case, we don't need to actually make any changes. So I'm just going to click cancel and I'm going to close the monster instance variables, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and add an extra event that will show the game over text if the monster's health is 0. So at the moment we've got it so that when the monster is when the monster collides with the monkey ball, that's when the game over text becomes visible. But instead we're going to add an extra event. So click on add event. Find the system, I beg your pardon, click on monster, that's it, then click on next, and then you want to find one of the variables. So if you scroll down, you'll find there's a section called instance variables. If you click on where it says compare instance variable, then click next, And then you want to check to see if health is equal to 0. Okay, you can change the instance of the particular variable that's been selected. In this case, we've only got one, so that's why there's only one available in the drop-down menu. There's different comparison operators. We want to do equal to, but you could do not equal to, less than or equal, greater than or equal. But in this case, it's equal to, and the value we're looking for is whether or not it's hit 0. Once you've done that, click on Done. And then the last thing we're going to do is, rather than having to redesign this bit of action, we're just going to drag it down and drop it into that Add Action section. Okay, so now when the monster's health hits 0, the Game Over text is going to become visible. Okay, so I'll drag that back up again and just go back over that in case anything didn't quite go in, because this one's a little bit more complicated than some of the other things that we do. So we go to Add Event, click on the monster, click on Next, find the Instance Variables section, find the one that says Compare Instance Variable, click on Next, make sure it's set to health equal to 0, then click on Done, and lastly, drag the Game Over text becoming visible and pop that action as the action for the one that you've just created. So the monster, when the health is equal to 0, the Game Over text is going to become visible. Okay, so if you preview it now, you'll find that actually nothing really happens. So if I preview, I can still move him, but nothing's happening to my health bar. He still disappears, so it's still not working quite as it should do. So the next thing we want to do is make it so that instead of the collision on the monkey ball making my monster destroyed, we want to make it so that it actually takes away some of his health. So to do that, we're actually going to get rid of the monster destroy here, because we don't need to use it there, but we're going to drag it down and put it down with the health equals 0, because actually when the health is equal to 0, that's when our monster is going to be destroyed. And we're going to add some new actions into this section, into the monster on collision with monkey ball. So click on Add Action, click on your monster, then click on Next, and this time we're going to find the one that says Add To. So I beg your pardon, subtract from. So we're going to subtract from the instance variable of health. So we take away 1 every time. So subtract from, then click on Next. And we're going to take away 1 every time. So that's fine. We can leave it as it is. As before, if you had more variables, you could choose them from the drop-down menu or type in a different number. But we only want to take away 1 each time. Then I click on Done. And that means that the monster's health is going to be taken away 1 each time, but if we press play and preview, we'll see that although the health is obviously being taken away each time, it's 1, 2, 3, game over, but the actual health bar isn't changing. So we need to do something just to make that work correctly. So we're almost there now. We've almost got a working health bar. So finally, we're going to make it so that the actual value of the health variable controls which frame of the monster's health bar is being shown. Now that sounds quite complicated. Don't worry, I'm going to talk you through how to add it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Add Action. We're going to click on the health bar and then we're going to go to Next. This time you're going to find the one that says Set Animation. So you want the one that actually says Set Frame, because we want to set the frame of the animation, not the animation itself, because there might be more than one animation, but it's the frame that we want to set. So Set Frame, then go to Next. And the frame number that we want to use is the monster's health. So in this case, you're going to type in monster, and you'll see it starts to populate a list of things that might be what you're wanting. So you can double click on monster. Then we're going to do a dot, and that lets us access any values that belong to monster itself. And the value that we're going to look for is, of course, health. So you can scroll down or you can start typing it in. Either way is fine. Double click on it when you found it, and that is it. So then click on Done. So now if we press play and we go and test it again, you should find that your monster health bar goes down, there we go, as he is hit by the monkey balls until it becomes game over. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time just to have a go at doing that again, and then we'll move on to the last part of creating this particular game. Okay, hopefully you previewed your game, made sure that it's working correctly, checked if there's anything that's not quite working as it should do. And I'm going to just suggest the last little bit of what you could potentially add to your game. So the last thing that I would suggest adding is these two actions. The first action stops the monster and from moving, so it means that you can't actually control him using the arrow keys anymore. So that's an option if you decide that you don't want him to disappear. You could just make him so he can't move anymore when your game over text comes up. But also you can also make it so that your monkey balls don't move anymore as well. Okay, so where do you think that you would need to add those? Have a little think about it. If you wanted to add those two actions, where would they need to be added to? Have a little think about that. Okay, so hopefully you've had a little think about it and you've come up with the same as me, that they need to be added to the monster health equals 0 event. So this is if you're wanting to add the set platform disabled, so the monster can't move anymore, you'll need to get rid of destroy, because you don't need to have that as well as stopping him from moving, because obviously he would have disappeared. So if you're going to add this behaviour, just delete the destroy and add it in as a new action. So all we do is we go to the monster, we go to next, and you find the platform section and you add the one that says set enabled, because we just want to do the opposite. So instead of enabled, we're going to change it to disabled. So you can see there's two options. So disabled is the one that you want, then click on done. That means he now won't be able to move once his health is reached 0. So just to show you that, I'll quickly show you now. So if I move him along and I'll just let him stand there until he's bounced on, until he's completely dead. Poor monster. There you go, game's over, but I now can't move. I'm pressing my key, but he's still not moving. But my monkeys are still bouncing. So actually we could do something to make that look a little bit better as well. And into the same event, go to add action again. This time you're going to go to the monkey ball, click on next, and this time you want to find the section for the bullet behaviour. So there's bullet, and as we did before, you want to go to set enabled, but instead of being enabled, you're going to change it to disabled to make sure the state is set to disabled, then click on done, and once again test it and just make sure that that works correctly. So you should find that if I just stay there until, there you go, it actually stops the monkey balls from bouncing. So when game over happens, it really does show that the game has completed. Excellent. Okay, so what is left to do in our game? Let's have a little look. Okay, so the very last thing that I would suggest that you do is just play your game. Make sure that you can actually reach the destination of the flag and get the you win text to come up, because that's already added. That was one of the events that we had to start with. So remember, my little challenge to you was to work out what the two events did. The other event makes the you win text appear when you collide with the flag. If you find that it doesn't work quite right and you can't quite get to the flag because you keep colliding with the monkeys, you might want to have a look at the bullet behaviour and have a think about how you can actually slow down that movement. So that's my little tip for you. Look at the properties of the bullet behaviour if you're finding it's a bit too difficult to reach the end of the gauntlet. Okay, so very, very well done. Hopefully you have completed your version of Run the Gauntlet. I'm going to very quickly remind you how to save your game in case you haven't remembered how to do that, because it's a very important part of the last bit of making your game. So I'm going to pop back over into Construct 3, And to save your game, remember it's menu, project, save as, download a copy. It will give you the option of changing the name, so you could change the name to Run the Gauntlet Complete or something like that if you want to. So I'm going to put some spaces in. There we go, and then I'm just going to click on OK, and that will download and save my game in my downloads folder. So if I click on the little arrow, go to show in folder, and I'll see that it's there inside my downloads folder. There was the original file that I started with, and there's my complete game there. Now obviously this game wouldn't actually be ready to go live on a website or anything like that. If you want to look at exporting your game and actually putting it on a website, then you do need to have the full version of Construct 3. It's well worth looking into if you want to, but if you just want to enjoy making games and learning how to create different events and different kinds of mechanics, then the free version is wonderful and you can do loads and loads with it. So that's completely up to you what you decide to do. Okay, so let's have a little look at what you can do if you want to take this further. So hopefully you've enjoyed making the game with me, and you maybe have got a little bit of a thirst for having a go at making something a little bit more complex, or maybe having a go at making some of the other behaviours that we talked about in the mechanics that we talked about in part 1 of this workshop. So there are actually 4 other part-baked games. Each comes with a worksheet detailing the variables, events, behaviours and effects that you need to use. So you can actually have a go at completing some other games, and you can use loads of the skills that you've learned in making Run the Gauntlet. I'm going to very quickly show you where to find that sheet if you do want to do that. So if you want to have a go at making some of the other part-baked games, all you do is you go onto our website. So I'm going to go back into the part-baked game files. So you remember, if you've forgotten where to find that, that's in Digital Schoolhouse, Resources, Live Workshops, and in the part-baked games section, part-baked games. And then if you go into the bit that has part-baked games files, just in there, you'll find all of the part-baked game files themselves are inside the part-baked games folder, so you can always open that up, and that's where you'll find the other games. So the other 4 games that I have in there are Capture the Pigs, Pipes, Release the Monsters, and The Floor is Lava, and they are all demonstrating other game mechanics that we learned in the previous workshop, in part 1 of this workshop. And the other thing that you want to do is get yourself a copy of the worksheets that go with this particular workshop. So the worksheets are here, part-baked games worksheets. So all I did is I went back to the main part-baked games page. So remember, that's resources, live workshops. Oops, there we go. Scroll down, find the part-baked games section, and you'll need the worksheets, which are just down there. And the recipe cards that go with this are at the end of the worksheets that you did in part 1 of this workshop. So you'll find there are the behaviours, events, instant variables that you used for creating the different mechanics for Run the Gauntlet. And if you want to have a go at any of the other games, there are cards for each one. So there's Floor is Lava, there's one for Pipes, there's one for Release the Monsters, that's a 2-pager, so be aware of that. And the final one, which is Capture the Pigs. So if you're interested in having a go at any of the other games, that's where you'll find the game cards that will help you to make them. And obviously make sure you download the part-baked game files if you've enjoyed having a go at this one. So let's have a little sneaky peek at what we're going to be looking at next time. Oh, actually I haven't told you what we've covered, so let me do that very first before we move into what we're going to be doing next time. So in this workshop, you've learned about how to build common game mechanics in Construct 3. You've used sequence, selection and repetition to create your game mechanics, and you've worked with variables and various forms of input and output in your game. So very well done. You've created something that's quite complex as your very first game, so hopefully you've enjoyed doing that. So this was Part-Baked Games Part 2. As I said earlier, if you didn't see Part 1 and you want to have a look at that, then please have a look at our YouTube channel. Now, sneaky peek at what we're going to be doing next time, we're going to be looking at binary numbers. So we're going to be learning how to write binary using zeros and ones. So we're going to be learning about how to actually represent binary numbers. But not only that, we're also going to be looking at how we can create Mario levels that require a knowledge of binary in order to complete them. But don't worry if you don't know anything about binary yet, because that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in the next workshop. So that's your sneaky peek for next time. So as usual, I've got about 5 minutes and I'm here to answer some of your questions on the chat. So I'm just going to hop over to the chat. And if you have got any questions, please feel free to ask them. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's workshop. I really enjoyed teaching you and showing you Run the Gauntlet. Hopefully you've enjoyed it too. So if anyone does have any questions, please just pop them in the chat now. So if you are interested in looking into Construct 3 more, there's also loads of resources on their website as well, which are really fantastic. So do feel free to look at their website resources as well for ideas that you can be using. Okay, so I've not got any questions in the chat at the moment. So, can I recap variables? I can't actually see what the question was, DSH. Can you just pop the question back in again? Sorry, there's a slight delay on this, so bear with me. Okay, just waiting for them to pop the question in. Okay, I've not got it coming through yet, so what I'll do is I'll do my best and hopefully address the question as I start to go through it. If I don't, then please pop the question in and I'll come back to it and in more detail if I haven't covered exactly what you're after. So we're back into Run the Gauntlet, and so what variable? Okay, so the variable that we were using to control the health bar was the variable that was contained in the monster. So all you do is you right click on him, go to edit instance variables, and you'll see inside there is a variable that's already been attached to him. It's called health. It's a number data type and it has the initial value of 3. You didn't need to add it because it was already added for you. So it was already in there as part of the part-baked game file. So you didn't need to actually do anything at all with it. It was already there. So all I was doing when I was talking about the variables earlier was just letting you know where to find them and where you could change them if you needed to. So for example, if you changed the initial value of the health bar and you wanted to make more increments for his health bar to go down further, so you give more chances to be hit before the game over happened, you could make the initial value higher. So instead of 3, it might be, I don't know, 6 or something instead. And all you do to change it is just double click and you could change it in there if you want to. But you don't need to make any changes to it. It's there as part of the part-baked file. And then the thing that's actually using that variable is 2 places. So the first place is inside the event that's to do with the monster colliding with the monkey ball, and that is this one here, where the monster has 1 being taken away from his health variable. So all I did to add that, if I just double click and go back, was I first of all selected the monster, then I went to next, and I found the section called instance variables, and I went to subtract from, because I want to take away from that variable that the monster has. So subtract from, and then I took away 1. So the health instance variable has 1 taken away from it every time the monster collides with the monkey ball. So that was that bit. The health bar itself is also controlled by the variable, and we did that by, if I just double click to open it up again and go back to show you again, I selected the health bar, I went to set frame because I want to use, because normally what you do is you type in the frame number to control which frame is being shown, but instead of actually typing in the number, I'm using the value of the variable at that particular moment. So I go to set frame, then next, and instead of just typing in a number like 3, that means it would start at animation frame 3 like this one at the top. Instead, I want it to look at the value that that particular variable is inside the monster object. So I'm going to go to monster, and then I do a dot, and I find the variable. So if I scroll down and find health, so monster.health means that now the frame number that's going to be shown on screen is going to be the value that the monster's health variable is at. So when it starts at 3, so you can see a full health bar, but as it goes down, if you remember, if I quickly go back into the health bar, if you remember the different frames of the health bar, there you go through 0, 1, 2, 3. So when the health variable is 3, you can see it like that. But when it's 2, it looks like that. When it's 1, it will look like that. And then when it goes to 0, it will be empty like that. Okay. And the final bit that we're using the health variable for is just checking what its value is. So we're constantly checking to see if the monster's health variable is equal to 0. And if it is, then we get that game over text coming up. You might have either destroyed the monster or just made it so you can't move him anymore, and then made it so the monkey balls aren't moving as well. These last two were optional. Okay, so hopefully that's explained a little bit more about the variable and how that works. If you do have any more questions, feel free to drop me an email. I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions, and you can be a bit more specific, maybe send me a screenshot if that didn't quite answer what you wanted. Okay, so that is the end of today's workshop. We've had a little sneaky peek at what's coming up next time. Hopefully you'll be joining me for looking at machine code Mario and how we can use binary code to control the end condition of a Mario level. So thank you for taking part. I hope you've had fun and learnt something new. If you've enjoyed this workshop, check out our YouTube channel for more follow along activities. If you've got any questions or feedback for me, please email dsh@uki.org.uk. Now, we'd love to see you learning computing at home with Digital Schoolhouse. Parents and guardians, please feel free to share any images or videos using the hashtag computing at home on Twitter or on Facebook. Also, for those of you who love writing, Digital Schoolhouse have launched a creative writing competition, which you can find more about on our website. Also, if you're a teacher and are interested in joining our programme, applications are currently open for new lead teachers, or maybe you're a parent of a primary age pupil and are interested in finding out how Digital Schoolhouse can work with your child's school. To find out more about the Digital Schoolhouse programme, check out our website, digitalschoolhouse.org.uk. You can find our contact information in the section below or at the end of this video. Lastly, I wanted to say a huge well done for taking part today. I'm Estelle, and thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.